legendary boxing promoter Bob Arum is, well, one half of this promotion for this massive world title fight that you'll see on Main Event this Sunday. Bob, you've been there for many of the biggest heavyweight fights in the history of the sport. Where does this rank for you? Does it feel like one of those really big fights?
It is one of the really big fights, certainly the biggest heavyweight fight of our times. It reminds me, people have asked me that, obviously, what heavyweight championship fight does this remind you of? And what I would tell them would be the first Ali Frazier fight in March of '71, because, and you'll see the similarities. In Ali, we had a fighter who was certainly the linear champion. He would have been the champion, and then they stripped him of his title because he couldn't fight for 3.5 years. But he had never been defeated, and he was still in his prime. And Joe Frazier had took the title in Ali's absence. He was also undefeated. And here these two guys in their prime, both undefeated, both with a claim to the heavyweight title, fought each other. And look at the similarities here. You got Tyson Fury, who beat Klitschko for the title. They took it away because of his inactivity, but he is still the linear champion, and he's undefeated. And you have Deontay Wilder, a tremendous puncher, guy who knocks out virtually all of his opponents, and he is undefeated. He's the WBC champion. And the only blemish on either of their records is a draw, but the draw, funny enough, was against each other.
It's obvious that you're really excited by this fight and excited by working with Tyson Fury. Is that more because of what he does inside the ring or because of what he's like outside the ring?
Well, it's a combination of both. If he can't produce inside the ring with all his charm and bombacity, he would just be another fighter that I was promoting. But he is an elite heavyweight, and he communicates with the public better than I've seen anybody else since Ali, with the possible exception of Big George Foreman during his comeback. So for me, it's because I was active in Ali's career, promoting 25 fights for him, and I did all of Foreman's comeback leading to the world title. This, to me, is just another milestone, because I really think Fury is not only going to win, but is going to knock Wilder out, and he is going to be massive, even more so than he is now after that happens.
Well, he's been saying that a lot, that he is going to go out there to knock him out. So obviously he's convinced you. For Australians, there's a lot of interest in the undercard because one of our up-and-coming stars in Daniel Lewis gets a fight against Sebastian Fundora. Massive opportunity for Daniel Lewis.
Yeah, well, Lewis has really impressed us. He's done, I think, a fight or two with us up to now. We think he's a real great prospect, a tremendous amateur career, nice young man. He was in to see me last week, and he's going to do real well. And this is a great spot for him on the pay-per-view card. It opens it up against this big giant of a junior middleweight.
You ever seen that before, a 197-centimetre junior middleweight? It's quite crazy.
It is crazy. I mean, but, when you're fighting a big guy like that, hit him in the stomach, bust his body down.
Pretty exciting time for Australian boxing because we have announced that Jeff Horn will be fighting against Tim Xue. You've obviously had plenty to do with Jeff Horn, and you've had some interest and some discussions around Tim Xue as well.
Yes, we were talking to Tim Xue's management. We offered him a couple of fights over here, and when he made the Horn fight, he contacted us and told us that that's the way he would go. And my good friend Dean Lonergan is the promoter, so it'll be promoted very well. And it's a great fight, really great fight. I don't know who's going to win that fight. Probably go with Horn for his experience. But, Tim Tszyu is a hell of a prospect, so we'll have to see.
fair bit of buzz around Tim Tszyu. Obviously, you've been in touch with Matt Rose, his promoter. So has Eddie Hearn and others. There's a bit of interest around him. Do you think that's because of his surname or because of the potential he is showing?
Well, I think both, a bit of both. I mean, Tszyu is a real good prospect, and obviously Tszyu, I mean, goes back in my history. I promoted fights for him. Tremendous fighter, Tszyu. And I think that Tim could be a chip off the old block. But we'll have to see. This is a real test against Horn. I think, Horn is a terrific fighter. He looks like a choir boy, but he can fight like hell.
You saw that particularly in Brisbane when he took on Manny Pacquiao and upset him. What are your memories of that day?
Well, it was an unbelievable experience with this big crowd at, I think, a rugby stadium. And I never forget, the sun was out so strong because it was done in the morning or late or noon in Australia to be back at prime time in the United States. And they were giving out lotion, suntan lotion, so you didn't get burned. But it was a great experience, a great crowd, and it was a great fight. Whoever you thought won the fight, I know that going into the ring after the fight, I had Horn maybe just a little ahead, but I thought, that they would give it to Manny. But that fight could have gone either way. That was a very, very good competitive fight.
You've talked to all the players involved and obviously have your own opinion. Who do you think wins between Jeff Horn and Tim Tszyu?
I think if I had to pick, and I don't know, it's hard for me to tell, you'd have to go with the guy who has more experience and is not over the hill, and that's Jeff. I think Jeff, has too much experience for Tim Tszyu at this time. But, I've seen in boxing many, many times where a guy who is less experienced is able to make that leap up in a particular fight and performs better than anybody anticipated and wins the fight. So I think it's a good fight. It's a toss-up fight. And but if I had to bet on it now, I would bet on Horn.
And if he were to win this fight, do you think there's more fights in the US for Jeff Horn, or is he an Australian domestic fighter at this point?
No, there's always fights in the US for Horn or Tszyu. I mean, we know how many good fighters there are in Australia. In addition to Lewis, who's on this card on your Sunday, our Saturday, opens the telecast, pay-per-view telecast. We have the Moloney twins, who will be fighting in April on different cards. Here, I think both fights are in Las Vegas. I think one will be April 11th, and the other would be on April 25 on the Monsters, Anui card with Casimero, and the Moloney will be fighting Josh Greer. Now, don't ask me which Moloney, but they look the same, and I get confused.
Well, that's Jason Moloney. He fights Joshua Greer on
right.
Naoya Inui's undercard on the 25th of April. But you've just told us that on April 11, Andrew Moloney will be fighting as well. He's got an interim version of the world title at the moment. Can you reveal to us who he's fighting or what's at stake?
I don't know. You have to ask my matchmakers. I mean, I've been concentrating on this, but I know they tell me that in April he's going to go on.
They're very exciting, the pair of them. Do you think they're a sellable commodity in the US, particularly given they're twins and as little fellas, they punch so hard?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'd show you, we have the box office report for April 25th with the Inoue, the Japanese great on the card. And the first hour, we sold over $100,000 worth of tickets. And right now we have in the box office an incredible amount of money, and we just started. I mean, I don't know nobody knows where these people are coming from that are they're buying the tickets. I think the Japanese really follow Inoue, and I think a couple of thousand are coming from Japan, which is great.
That is exciting. Speaking of travelling, any chance that we do see you back in Australia at some stage? Maybe not for Horn against Xue, but maybe for another big fight down the track, or don't you want to make the big journey anymore?
I know, but for me, it's not a journey. Particularly I have a house in Los Angeles, so you go to the airport, you get on a plane, and you sleep, and you're in Australia. So I love coming to Australia. The people are first class. They're really, really fun people. It's a great country, a lot of good fans. So you bet your dollar I would like to come over there probably this coming summer.
Well, we look forward to that. And just finally, your tip, what happens in Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder?
I think my guy Fury is going to do the smart thing. He's going to try to hurt Wilder early, because if he hurts Wilder early, Wilder will not be able to unleash that one punch that could end the fight. And that's the way to fight him. And I think Fury is going to surprise everybody and knock out Wilder in the 7th or 8th round.
Well, that would be a shock. Thanks so much for the chat, Bob Arum. We're really looking forward to this fight. It is on this Sunday on Main Event in Australia.
This is the biggest heavyweight fight in recent history. You have got to be kidding me!